Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm starting over again. Take two. I took the microphone off. I wonder if it's pulling from the Wi-Fi. So hopefully you can hear me. I've got to get with a cable company and see. So can everybody hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Hello again, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. All right, just give me a something, a smiley, a something. Okay, you can hear? All right. So back to where we were. We had our Technique Talk Tuesday ink challenge. And our three contestants were Mary Konopka, Marilyn Ray, and Marianne Rumsey. So these three are in this little drawing, and what they are going to win is this little tiny canvas sack from Stuff by Belle that's going to have some little chipboard pieces in it. So that is going to be the prize for the winner that I am about to pull right here so that you can see what I'm doing. I've got my head turned. I'm not looking. I can't see what's going on in there anyway. So, whoop. All right, and our winner is Mary Ann Rumsey. Mary Ann, next time you're in the store, this will be up at the counter for you. So it'll be this little canvas bag, and I'll have some chipboard pieces in there for you. So congratulations, and thank you so much for participating in our little challenge. Okay, today we are talking about splatters. I know a lot of people are nervous when I say splatter or when anybody says splatter, but there are a lot of different ways that we can splatter, and if you practice, you might find one that you absolutely love, and then you want to splatter everything. So, I'm going to talk to you about a bunch of different ways that you can splatter. So I've got some things. These are all pieces from the big bin of backgrounds and samples. Some we did on Technique Talk, some I did in mixed media, and some, God only knows where they came from. But anyway, so first I'm going to put the substrates aside, and I'm going to talk about different things that you can use to splatter. Okay? So, you of course can use ink. Sorry if I turn my head for a second because I'm looking for something. There's a lot of different ways that we can splatter. I was just looking for another thing that I wanted to talk about. Okay, so you can clearly use distress sprays, the regular stain and the oxide. The difference will be the stain is going to be a more translucent, maybe not as bright kind of a splatter than the oxide, because the oxide with the blend of inks will sit on top. Okay, so we've got sprays that you can use. You can also use paint, acrylic paints, and I'll show you what you need to do to them to make them splatterable. You can use ink. Got a couple of inks here that we're going to splatter with. Ink pads, I'll say that, because you can also use acrylic ink, liquid ink that you might use a calligraphy pen in. We can also use the Dina Wakley gloss sprays. This does great splatters because it's liquid acrylic paint, and they'll be very vibrant splatters. And then for those of you that are Lawn Fawn fans, you maybe have seen Kelly Marie use this Copic ink. Oh, shoot, I just spilled it all over. Sorry, I haven't even opened it yet and already spilled it. I forgot to shake it. So this Copic ink she uses to do white splatters. Whoopsie. The joys of being live. Okay. So you can use all of those things. And then there are a couple of ways that you can splatter also. Let me shake this up a little. Okay. I am going to show you the first one with the distress sprays because it's the easiest. And, well, you know, sometimes I like easy. I'm not easy, but sometimes I like easy. All right, so all you have to do with this, and you have to be careful when you're doing this, because if you've got the lid off, you've got spillable stuff. And, well, you just saw me spill, so a lot of spilling going on around here. So I have to be extra careful. So you want to unscrew the cap, and you've got this stem here, and you're going to use the stem to splatter with this. So really, you can use it to do big ink splatters where you just let a big blob fall down like that. Or you can tap it like this, and you're going to get smaller ones. All right. That is number one way to splatter. And that is quick and easy because you don't have to do anything to the ink. Now, when this dries, it probably won't be as dark, okay? So there is one way to splatter. Another way to splatter is to take your ink, I'm gonna use this, and smoosh it over on your craft mat. Add a little water. And the more liquid it is, of course, the easier it is going to be to splatter. And this is a tag that I did some jelly printing on. It's kind of fun. So I am going to use just any old paintbrush. It doesn't really matter. I like longer bristles. It makes the splattering a little bit easier. And I've got some of that ink on there, and then I'm just going to tap it. So you can tap it this way, or you can tap it on your finger like this. You'll get splatters. Or you can fling it down like this, and then you kind of get a row of splatters. All right, so more splatters using your ink pad. All right, and this is distress ink, so when this dries, it will be translucent also. Okie doke. Now, normally I would use this on something, but I don't have something to use it on right here, so I'm going to sop it up and clean it up. All right. This is one of the chipboard shapes, the Dina Wakley chipboard shapes, and I was using it as a mask, so I would put it down and then spray over it to get the shape. But I also, after these have been used a bunch of times, this has got a few layers of acrylic spray on it. All right, so this is a good background to use, or sorry, not a background to splatter on, but also you can make it into a piece of ephemera or a focal point on a journal page, so it can be used ultimately on something after you've used it as a mask. But this is the gloss spray, so the same thing with the with the little sprayer straw. And this color is Peacock, one of my faves. And there is the Peacock splattered on the dark acrylic paint. All right, now that won't necessarily be translucent because that is acrylic on acrylic, so it should stay pretty bold. All right, the one thing I will say is if you're new to splattering, protect your surface and don't have anything around that you don't want to have splatters on, because sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen. Could go anywhere. Okay. Another way to splatter is to take some paint. And the reason that I've experimented with using all these things is because sometimes you just want a specific color. Yes, Susan, a splatter box probably would be a good idea. That would mean that I have to get up and get mine though. All right, so I've experimented with all these things because sometimes I just want a very specific color. So this was the Distress Paint Salvage Patina. I put a little drop on there and I added some water. The reason I add water is because you need to make it fluid enough to splatter. Let me wipe my brush off because, well, it's red. Okay. And then we'll put it into the paint and water mixture and mix it up. And I'm going to show you another trick. So if you want fine splatters, you can take an acrylic block, put some of your, whatever you're splattering on the acrylic block, and you can flick it like this. And this will give you fine little splatters. So if you're not sure about splattering, this might be what you want to try. All right. So that gives you a fine splatter. All right. So there's another way that you can splatter. We'll clean that off. Now, if you happen to have acrylic ink that's in a container that has a dropper, this will allow you to do big splatters because you can just give it a squeeze from high up and plop and plop. All right, so you've got big splatters that will dry in bigger splats. And then you could also take some of that ink, add a little water. This is gold. Oops. It now has a little blue in it because I forgot to clean my brush. But then you can just do little splatters like this. And when you water it down, they're not quite as bright. And when they're smaller, again, not quite as bright. But then you've got big splats and you've got little splatters. All right. Then with this kind of ink that comes in this little jar, and I've always wanted to try it because Kelly Marie at Lawn Fawn uses it all the time. She uses it with her acrylic block. I'm going to clean my brush because, well, the white will show the gold and the blue. So let me clean my brush. Of course, I could get a new brush, huh? All right, so what she does is takes a little bit of that ink, and this is brand new, but if it starts to dry out a little bit, all you have to do is add water. All right, and it'll water it down some more, but she puts it on her block and does this kind of splattering, so she gets a fine mist splatter. So this is just a different kind of ink, a different container for the ink that is typically in a bottle like this that's got the dropper. This one seems a little bit easier to spill, in my opinion, because I'm, well, clumsy. All right, so look at how fine that white splatter is on there. Doesn't it just mix really well with the grunginess of that jelly mono print that I pulled off of my jelly plate? It's fun. It's a subtle splatter, but what a splatter does, especially if you're splattering in white, it just gives the other colors a little pop. And if you're splattering in black or a dark color, sometimes it just finishes it off. I don't know. It's just something that I love. Now, Tim Holtz and Ranger have a product. He's got this splatter brush. I haven't quite mastered this yet, but if you watch some of Tim's demos, he's really good at it. And he uses his splatter box. Marilyn, you don't like to splatter because you can't control it? Yeah, well, I think you guys know me by now. I like to let go of some control when I'm creating, but when I'm not creating, I like to have total control. So yes, they do have some really awesome splatter stamps. I've done some like coffee ring splatter die cuts on chipboard, and you can also, you know, I think all sorts of companies did thinlit type dies that cut splatter shapes for you so you could use it as a background or an overlay. But this brush has thick plastic bristles. I feel like mine's kind of gunky. I might not have washed it last time. But they're long because the way that he uses it is kind of like strumming a harp. So he puts whatever he's splattering on the brush and then pulls it like this so that it kind of flicks it. Now, like I said, I haven't quite controlled it, but I am going to give it a shot right here in front of all of you. All right. We'll see how I can, oh yeah, Mary, true, splatter stencils as well. All right. Of course, we're Uncharted Mariner here. We'll put a little bit down. I'm gonna water it down just a smidge. Okay. So he swirls this brush in there and then kind of holds it at an angle, and I like that one, so I'm going to move it so it doesn't get blue splattered all over it. And then kind of, depending on how close or how far away you are, this is close, you get a very dense splatter, let's call it, all right? But if you're holding it up here, you get splatters kind of all over. So this is definitely a tool that you want to use in your splatter box because I can see ink splattered all on my table. But this is water-based ink, so I'm okay with it. All right, so this is holding it really close to what you're splattering on, and this is holding it not super far away because otherwise you'll splatter the whole table. And I might splatter all these other projects I have going on over here, which won't be good. I'm working on a sample for a class over there. Okay, so that is a bunch of different ways that you can splatter. Does anybody have any questions? I kind of went over, well, not really. I guess I didn't really go over time because I had to start over again. But there's all kinds of things that you can splatter with. You know, even in a pinch, you can use an old toothbrush. I know a lot of people use an old toothbrush. That to me is a little bit messy because you got to get your finger on the toothbrush and kind of fling it like this. I mean, not that I'm opposed to getting messy. You people have seen my hands all the time, so. Get that blue ink out of there. This is about as much cleaning as I like to do, ladies. All right. Robin is asking, do I have a paper preference for splattering on? I splatter on everything, Robin, but here's what I'll say about it. A thinner paper, like just a regular 60 or less pound cardstock that you might be using, pattern paper that you might be using on a card or maybe a layout, could potentially warp because it's getting wet. Okay. If you are using an 80 pound or higher, which 80 pound to 110 is like the tags and the heavy stock, the distress heavy stock, won't warp, and it accepts wet mediums very well. So I think it really depends on what you're doing. You also have to remember that if it's a shiny surface that you're splattering on, it's probably not going to stick very well. So you might want to gesso it. There is a clear gesso that you can use, but that's going to give it a little grit, so you'll get a grip if you're trying to splatter or paint or do whatever. But if it's a slick surface, the paint is just going to slide or wipe off. The paint, the ink, or whatever, unless it's something like stays on and you don't really want to splatter with that. So I think it just really depends on what you're doing and just understanding what could potentially happen, because you could clearly always flatten out a piece of paper if you're splattering before you put it on a card, right? So just consider these things when you're making, so that you know what's going to happen. I prefer, if you're asking what my preference is, I prefer a thicker, like the mixed media tags or the distressed mixed media paper or watercolor paper, for that exact reason. It doesn't warp, and I don't have to worry about it. I hope that answers your question. All right, ladies, anything else? If not, I'm going to say adios. I will also say that if I have time, I will pre-record a technique talk for next week, but Renee and I are going to be out of town at a vendor, manufacturer vendor show, so I'll be in Kansas City. But if I can get to something, I'll pre-record it. Otherwise, there won't be a technique talk next week, and I will make sure to let you know. All right? And then don't forget about Dina Wakely classes. You've got 2 days left for early bird pricing. And have a super great week. Enjoy the great weather. And I am sure that I will be seeing you ladies in the store. And thank you so much. We will have a great trip. And we will be bringing you back lots of fun things. And Marianne, don't forget, your prize will be at the counter. I'm going to be at the store tomorrow, so I'll drop it off for you, okay? Thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And I think I figured out why I was having so much trouble with my internet, because I had too many things on down here that were connected to the Wi-Fi. So problem solved, ladies. Next time we won't have an issue. All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll be talking to you soon. Thank you.